So, unwinnable games. Let's maybe we could do a little how do we do this? Yeah, let's do a little game design, writing some shit up type of thing, you know what I mean? One second. It'd be like a little video, you know? All right. Let me share my screen here. We're gonna turn game capture off. We're gonna turn this on, which this guy? Yeah. All right, so we're gonna use AI to generate the entire game design document here, and just whatever it says, that's what we'll have. That's what we'll do. Okay, so maybe some percent chance of unwinnable games is good. So that's the topic. So let me contextualize and explain what I mean by this. In Klondike Solitaire, for example, you have between a 10 to 20% chance to get a draw that can't be solved. I don't need these headphones right now. Squishing my head, you know. You get a draw that can't be solved. Depending on the specific rules, i.e. 1 draw versus 3 draw. Okay. I guess I'll just write some bullet points here. In Klondike Solitaire, you have a 10 to 20% chance to get a draw that cannot be solved. I can share that, like, my own experience of Solitaire was often like I understood the principle. I always got like, oh, maybe there are some of these that are unsolvable, but I never went and like looked it up until recently. Or maybe I did and I forgot, but I didn't like growing up. And I played Klondike Solitaire like my whole life, you know? And really, I played that game since the 90s. And I played it yesterday, actually. And I think that might be partly what made me think about this. Yeah. We know what we're talking about with Klondike Solitaire, right? That's the classic Windows Solitaire that people talk about. So, you know, this game has achieved, you know, a massive, like a massive, never-ending fan base, you know, that plays the game, that will always play the game, like probably forever. You know, like a Tetris kind of thing. I guess I'll just phrase it as like, I wonder if it is actually a good thing that you have that 10 to 20% chance to have an unwinnable, you know, draw. And let me try to explain why I'm saying that. Also, this framing is all fucked up. Let's fix a lot of things here. Boop. Boop. Ba-doop, ba-doop, boop, 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 ba-doop, ba-doop, boop, boop, boop. We can close that like that. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, yeah. It should be like that. So let's see. Why do I think that some chance of unwinnable games is good? I guess we would have to compare it to a version of the game that you can win every single time. let me just like word it like this. Like, I'll do like a sub bullet point. There's an ambiguity to this in practice where you never really know if this particular match is unsolvable, let's say. And I don't know if that's the case for everybody. Like, maybe there are some people who are like super card county or something. And I'm not even sure this is the case for me. Like, I don't know if I think I'm probably playing Solitaire optimally because, like, it's not a very complex game. So I feel like I probably play optimally, but I'm not 100% sure. And in that, so let's write this down. I feel like I play Solitaire close to optimally, but I'm not 100% sure. And within that unsureness, is enough room for the unwinnable games to like feel okay. So in other words, if I was a super robot who never made mistakes in Solitaire, let's say a super Solitaire robot, then every loss would be the result of a unwinnable draw. But because I'm a human who probably makes mistakes, little mistakes that I don't notice. Let's add to that. It's not even that I make mistakes. It's that I think that I could be making mistakes. So, in practice, I might be playing, let's say like I am playing Solitaire exactly 100% perfectly, just like the robot. It may be the case that I am as good at Solitaire as this super robot. But I don't know that for sure. And I also assume that I make mistakes even if I can't identify them. I can't point to any in particular. Right? So like I know I'm fallible, and so like TLDR, I know I'm fallible, and in that fallibility, well, let's say it this way, and that fallibility sort of blends with the 10 to 20% unwinnable states, and in a way that I don't know what proportion of matches I'm losing because of unwinnable states versus my own error. Curious if this makes sense to people so far. Like, maybe I'll post this on my Discord real quick. Okay, so none of that justifies. So I think that like I want an up arrow. This so far is simply describing the relationship between, you know, like human fallibility, I guess, and randomness. All games with randomness have some degree of the game is fucking me over versus I am fucking up. And there's always ambiguity between these. Right. Cool. I think I can do, that's fine. Yeah, like that. And then I can move this up. There we go. Okay. In other words, the above does not justify. Ooh, mana screw. I want to bring that into the conversation. Yeah. In other words, the above does not justify unwinnable games. Just to be clear, the above is mostly like a preamble to the conversation. Okay. Let's read what Whizbane says. Is this sort of related to MTG Mana Screw? A lot of times people blame Mana Screw, but it often shields their ego. Okay. Yeah, so the ego shield thing where players are able to blame randomness for losses is sort of decently well understood and not where I'm coming from. Like, yeah, I think that that ego shield thing is completely valid and real and is a valid reason to add randomness to games. But that's a different topic than an unwinnable game, right? Because in Magic the Gathering, I mean, I guess maybe from the perspective of one player, yeah, actually, maybe it's not. They're related because when you get mana screwed, that is an unwinnable game, probably. You know, I mean, certainly Magic the Gathering has some unwinnable games. In fact, it has a lot of them. It has a good amount of them. But the difference with this, let's talk about Magic the Gathering mana screw. And why this so interesting. Okay, so the difference between MTG Mana Screw resulting let's put this in parentheses. MTG Mana Screw resulting in an unwinnable game and Klondike Solitaire unwinnable game is that in the MTG case, it's clear as day to the player that they have been dealt an unwinnable deal. Whereas in Solitaire, it's not, because there are some games where you might have moved something somewhere, drawn something out, like, you know, well, let me boot it up actually. I have it on, I have the Windows Solitaire. Just so I can show you what I mean. Make this smaller for now. Window capture. Solitaire. Cool. Where is it? Klondike. So yeah. What's happened? I already beat a game. I beat the game. I beat it. They have ads in this. How gross is that? Ugh. Disgusting. Hideous. Alright. I don't actually know what these difficulty modes do. It's kind of interesting. Um, okay, so yeah, so well, this is draw one, which is less of a chance to get totally fucked, although you still can. Um, but there are situations. Let's see if I can find one. Where so far so good, so far so good. Like the choice points in this game. There's not that many of them, but there are some, and they usually have to do with this. And in particularly in the draw 3 version, there are some times when you could drag a card down and play it, or not. You could leave it up here, and I think it's usually the better choice to leave it up here as long as you can, because there's no cost to doing that. I think if I was like always playing min-maxi mode, I would always do that. Yeah. So, but sometimes I don't do that, and maybe that's, I don't know, maybe that's just me being bad at the game. But sometimes I feel like, oh yeah, this. I guess maybe sometimes I'm like, okay, yeah, this. I'm confident this needs to go there, but I'm not sure that it always needs to go there. I guess that's what I'm saying is like I said, I might be the super robot, but I don't know that I'm the super robot. And within that, it creates this ambiguity. So yeah. Anyways, we can go back to the doc. So yeah, Magic Mana Screw is bad because every turn you're sitting there, every turn in MTG Mana Screw, you're sitting there looking at what is obviously an unwinnable hand, a hand of all creatures or all mana. And watching your health go down while you can do nothing about it. So to compare those, so let's try to imagine maybe in the Magic the Gathering universe if there was a unwinnable game, but well, okay, so yeah, a MTG, unwinnable. They both have this band of plausibly unwinnable games, but it's very hard to know. It is always it's hard to know in solitaire. Whereas, yeah, in MTG, it's known. You can tell when you're getting mana screwed, very very easily. Whereas you cannot always tell in solitaire, and that's the big difference. So I guess just to jump to the conclusion here, we still haven't really explained why unwinnable games is a good thing. Specifically, why you specifically want unwinnable games, not just like people have been saying in the Discord chat. You know, if you allow for unwinnable games, then it sort of lets you do design in a bunch of different ways that you might be constrained if you were to make sure there was no unwinnable games. So I guess like my theory is a theory, 10 to 20% of like plausibly deniable unwinnable games like it like adds to a feeling of depth, or a feeling of adds to a feeling of a much of a higher ceiling. And like you could say like, oh, it creates a sense of like false depth, and I guess that's true. You know, like to phrase it negatively, creates false depth. To phrase it positively, changes the vibe of the game to be to feel like, like you're staring up at a huge mountain or something, changes the vibe of the possibility space as it's felt by the player. Let's just say, why are unwinnable games good? 10 to 20% of plausibly deniable unwinnable games. Let's put this in underline because that's important. Adds to a feeling of a higher ceiling, because I next want to think about Go. A game like Go creates, let's see, would this vibe not also be changed in the same way from 10 to 20% winnable but really hard games? Not in the same way, but it's like on the same spectrum, It's I think what I'm trying to get at with 10 or 20% of your games, you're just gonna fucking lose them. It creates a feeling like that of playing Go. I think Go has this vibe. Go has this vibe that the skill ceiling is like 10,000 million feet above you. That you are not coming anywhere close to the ceiling of the game, to the skill ceiling, and but it does this at great cost, being a deterministic game with a 19 by 19 board, which is just madness that no one would ever produce. No one would ever make a game like that. whatever try to create, and if they did, everyone would ignore them. And this is me hating on Go a little bit, but Go is like a artifact that existed, thousands of years ago. Smaller than the average player's map size in Civ, yes, but Civ, each tile means so much less, and Civ is almost like a toy where you can make mistakes all over the place, and it has all these different victory conditions. Most of the tiles just don't even fucking matter at all. You can completely ignore them. In Go, you have to care about every single tile. So you're right. I mean, maybe 100 by 100 or 1,000 by 1,000 Go would start to be a little bit more like how Civ is. But I think Civ and Go are nothing alike in this way. And I think that's because Go is a competitive game that's totally deterministic. By the way, Civ is not deterministic. There's random combat in Civ. There's random events that happen. There's shitloads of hidden information in Civ. So yeah, there's such different, markedly different systems. So it's not just the size of the board. It's the 19 by 19 plus the determinism, no hidden information at all. And that means that every single tile matters, is everything. And so anyway, to me, I think Go, in terms of trying to make a game like Go in 2025, is a total non-starter, which is why nobody does it. And if anyone does, we don't hear about it because nobody wants that. Even the one Go is most people are oh, I don't know about that. Some people love it, and that's great, and I'm jealous of them. But yeah, I think it's a very it's like a weird artifact thing that's its own thing, almost distinct from the projects that we think about in game design, video game design, and all that. But I do think that Go is helpful in that it does have this endless quality to it. This you can play this for your whole life. And I think Tetris has that, and I think Solitaire has that, and there's a bunch of these little games like that that have that quality to them. And I think that some percent chance of unwinnable games might be part of that. 10 to 20%, let's write this down again. 10 to 20% of plausibly undeniable winnable games is probably a spice that game designers should employ to create the sense of a massive, you know, mountainous skill ceiling, to create skill ceiling. Yeah. I think that's what I'm trying to get at. I think that's what I've been trying to say. I wonder if there's any thoughts on this. Let's put this all on one page. Or fit? Yeah. There we go. Is that visible on the thing though? Maybe. Kinda. There you go. So yeah, any thoughts, questions, comments, that kind of shit? Is this an ideal value for skill compensation? No, it's like the opposite of skill compensation, right? Ideal skill compensation would be the better player wins every single time, pretty much, right? Like chess and Go have about as close to ideal value for skill compensation as possible. I don't want the sense of a mountainous skill ceiling. I want a mountainous skill ceiling, right? The problem is a real mountainous skill ceiling. That's a good. I'm glad you said that. I think that's good. Oops, hold on. Don't paste with formatting. I think that's very valid, but I think that a real mountainous skill ceiling, an actual mountainous skill ceiling, brings with it a bunch of design necessities that are bad. No, that are not bad. That are that. Well, I mean, maybe we're going right back to the I'm gonna put ... here because I don't know what to say here exactly, but I have a vibe. And game design is often a battle between accessibility and depth. And if you want, and that's not for everybody, you know, I mean, some people want games that are totally accessible and have almost no depth, and some people want games that are like infinitely deep and have no accessibility. And by accessibility here, I just mean like, you know, how easy is it to learn the rules and to get into it and to play it? How easy, you know, how much like cognitive load is it? You know, is it like a smooth experience? All these kinds of things. Let's say in this way, extremely costly for accessibility. And one of the beautiful things about something like Solitaire is how accessible it is, and how smooth it is, and how satisfying it just is on a very basic level. Carbach says, how high can the unwinnable game rate be? That's a good question. That's a really good question. Because I feel that 10 to 20 is fine. Well, I think that if it gets much higher than that, you start getting into mana screw territory, where the plausible deniability starts going away. Let's make a quick little thing here. How high can the percentage be? At 10 to 20%, it's the plausible deniability can works. I guess it's like I guess actually we can figure it out, because let's say we don't know anything about this game, right? We're talking about like a fictional game, like a theoretical game. Let's say you have a 50% chance to win overall, right? Roughly. So if 10 to 20% of your games are unwinnable, then you feel like, well, 30. So let's write this down. In a theoretical, let's say you have 50% or 40 or 60, etc. Chance to win the game, right? If you the other question is, does the player know? So if, okay, let's write it this way. If the true percentage of unwinnable games is 10, well, let's say it's 10. Yeah, let's say it's 10. Then 40% of the player's losses will be of their own design. You know, however, if we make a game where, let's say, 60% of matches are unwinnable, well, that means that would mean that like there's only 100%, right? There's only 100% total, and so it's likely that the player would start to feel that the game is unfair. You know, like, to me, fairness is a vibe, and that vibe would be damaged if it's, I don't know the number, but I feel like it's somewhere, if the percent unwinnable is between 25, is higher than 25. I would say that. Let's say threatened, increasingly threatened. So yeah, does that make sense? Let's make this a thing. Let me finish reading your comment, Carbach. How in non-match-based games like Dwarf Fortress, there's a saying, losing is fun. Well, they're just being cute, because you don't really win or lose Dwarf Fortress. It's not really a contest in that way. You're guaranteed to lose at some point, but the game is so much fun it doesn't matter. Yeah, you're not actually losing in Dwarf Fortress. Dwarf Fortress is just a simulator, so it's like, I don't know, it's like going to just playing with a sandcastle. You can't lose. Maybe you'll knock your sandcastle over, maybe not. You know, like I guess the software does like have a sort of game over state, which I think colloquially makes sense to call that losing. That's fine. But I think, like, from a formal perspective, when we're talking about winning and losing, Dwarf Fortress doesn't have this really. We're talking about games that are contests. Yeah, which Klondike Solitaire is, I think, and Dwarf Fortress is not. Because again, there's no way to win Dwarf Fortress. You literally have 100% chance. In fact, if we are going to say that Dwarf Fortress is a contest, Dwarf Fortress is a game that you have 100% chance on winnable. But I wouldn't say that. I think that's misleading. Whizbane says, this is a 60 to 80% skill compensation. It's the inverse of unwinnable and unlosable games. Not sure I understand that comment. But yeah, I feel like I've made some progress here. This is like an article. It could be an article with some formatting and stuff. So like to conclude this, I would say, and of course, please, if you have more questions, bring them my way. I want to hear them. But to conclude this, I would just say 10 to 20% of plausibly deniable, unwinnable deals or games, matches, we can say, whatever, is an important tool in the designer's tool belt to help them make, or like if they want to make accessible games that feel incredibly deep and replayable. That's kind of, that's, yeah. I think that's what I intend to say. But yeah, let me know if you have any more questions, thoughts, comments. I will share this in the I will share this in the Discord. Yeah, so I'm gonna go back to playing some Hearthstone Battlegrounds now. Boop 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 boop. I'm gonna post this in the thing. Is it ethical to make a game that feels deeper than it is? That's a good question. Is it ethical? That's a really good question. Let me go back to sharing here. Oops. My first thought is yes, because games are all about, and art in general is all about illusions. First thought, yes. Games, art, games and art, other art forms are all about creating illusions to create a vibe or communicate a message, or be fun or make people dance or whatever. Some objective. We create illusions to serve, to accomplish an objective. Yeah. I'm trying to think of situations where it wouldn't be ethical, and like maybe if it was like a competitive game where like there was money on the line or something like that, perhaps there would be ethics concerns. For a serious competitive game, you know, like where a lot was on the line. You know what I mean? Like like a large amount of money is on the line or something like that. Whizbane says, my earlier comment was in relation to what you were getting at. 20% unwinnable is 80% play. Right, exactly. Oh, yeah. And I'm pretty sure that's basically skill comp / fairness 5. Yeah. Yeah. And I was considering a multiplayer game where you might have another percentage of losable games. Of unlosable games. Oh, unlosable games. Interesting. That is now a whole nother thing that I haven't even thought of. Well, unlosable games, that's really interesting. I don't think it's symmetrical. Because I'm trying to imagine an unlosable game. I guess like Magic has that. Well, certainly if you're on the other end of a mana screw, right? Like if your opponent's being mana screwed, you can very much feel that you have an unlosable game because you're just playing minions and doing spells and your opponent's not doing anything. And their health is just going down and they're just dying. I would say unlosable games. What is the effect of that? That's a really good question. I don't think we need to explicitly... What about percentage of unlosable? I don't think we need to explicitly aim for this. I think it just happens, right? Like, yeah, it's not symmetrical. It's hard to explain exactly why, but I don't think this is as useful game design thing. But there are some situations where you want unlosable games. Like, you know, if you're explaining the rules, like a tutorial. I don't know if that even counts. I think unlosable, some percentage unlosable. But well, actually, yeah, it's similar though, right? Because unlosable games feels more like game balance or something. Obviously, if you know this percentage can't or ought not go too high, much similar to this is a way it's similar. Above 20%, because then it becomes too apparent, right? Like if 40% of games are unlosable, the attitude that games are all about illusions is what made me quit video games and play board games for years. Well, I have bad news for you because board games are also just about illusions. I mean, there's different kinds of illusions. And like, I think if you put, you know, like mechanical depth, like sort of mathematical depth, the way that like Go has or something, if you put like even the way that humans interact with that, or the way that you think you're interacting with that, I think there is still, Go is still a game of illusions. I think, even though there are some things, of course, that are actual, you know, like logical progressions, like this goes to this, causal connections. I think that it's still the way it works when it works is still because of a bunch of illusions about, you know, oh, I'm doing this strategy and oh, I did this. And if I didn't do this, then he wouldn't have done that. And like, you know, you're kind of telling yourself a story. So I think like board games, and certainly when we talk about like board games, like you know, more modern board games, it's very they're much more about like stagecraft and like setting a vibe, setting a tone. You know, that's all I mean by illusion. By illusion, I mean, you're asking, is it ethical to make a game that feels deeper than it is? Well, honestly, I think every game any of us have ever loved feels deeper than it is, probably. That's what's wrong with many board games. Yeah, I mean, you know, people have different feelings about that, and I think like, yeah, if I know you're a lover of Go, and so that makes perfect sense to me. That like somebody who is more of like that depth person, you know, like they're gonna want more real causal systemic stuff in the game. I would say though that like most game players, and I think there's a lot of evidence for this based on the games people play, they want a little bit of that, but it's more about a vibe. And I generally feel like in general that's how people are. People don't really care about the words or the text or the actual substance that much, except to the way that the substance contributes to a vibe. Because like words and a grid and all these things, these are like abstractions that are they're very simple, and reality is very complicated, and humans are complicated, and emotions are complicated, and you know, a concept like fun is very complex and complicated, and so a vibe is able to interact in that like human emotional world in the way that like the number 7 plus the number 5 plus, you know, coordinates x, y, you know, 37, 16 can't really interact with that stuff. And so there is a sense in which like the more hard mathematical and real you get in terms of depth and that kind of stuff, the less you like, the more verifiable you get, I guess. The more like the further away you get from directly interacting with like on the vibe space where humans, you know, feel things and communicate. Not all humans, you know, I mean, everybody's different. But just from looking around and seeing like how the games that people play and how people play games, you know, like I was just talking the other day about how like in Genshin Impact, the abilities in that game are so fucking complicated, and a lot of them. And like, I think that most people, like, even if, frankly, I've read the descriptions to them multiple times, and I'm like, sort of understand, but it's more of just like, it's a vibe, you know, like the ability has it expresses like a thing in sort of a rough way. And yeah, I don't know, this also connects to other concepts like about polish and how games communicate what's going on in them. So yeah, I think like video games in general are very much about like stagecraft. They're more about stagecraft. If you like are alienated by the idea of like stagecraft or you know, like, I don't know, things like music or art sort of like leaning you to feel a certain way about a mechanic, then yeah, like I think I definitely understand like board games being more appealing because they're closer to that like numeric universe. Yeah, but in any case, it's not unethical. Is it unethical to be a stage magician? You know, is it unethical to be a stage magician, or to make a movie, a fictional movie? You know, the things in a fictional movie aren't really happening. Like, and I think that what we do in games with rules is no different from what an actor does on a stage in this regard. There's nothing unethical about it, I don't think. Yeah, it's just we're using rules to create different responses in people. There are things you can do, I think, that are unethical with rules. You know, we've talked a lot about like dark patterns, and those are unethical. But this is just game design. A movie presents itself as fictional. Well, so do games. I mean, they're not saying, video games are not saying they're not really making an actual claim that, like Solitaire, you know, or Genshin Impact for that matter, like neither of them are like sort of making any kind of claim that they are deep, you know, or anything. They're not making any such claim. I guess, like, let me try to steelman your position. Like, I guess maybe how I could come around to your position would be like, these systems like sort of suggest by their rules themselves that there's a lot going on there, and there's not as much going on as you would think. But until that moment happens, because that's happened to all of us, right? Like we've all played a game and we've loved that game, and we played it and played it and played it, and then we are struck by this moment of like, there's not nearly as much here as I thought, and you do feel kind of betrayed and sometimes. And I think until that happens, you know, it's just a game. I think like all of the games that we like right now are, maybe if we played them for 1,000 years, we would reach that point where we'd be like, this is just, you know, games have a tendency to kind of collapse, most games, like at some point, right? When you play them and play them and play them and play them, you start to like see like, oh, this game is actually just all about blank. It's a very simple game, actually. You know, that can happen, but I don't think it's unethical. I guess it would be unethical if like Solitaire, the maker of Solitaire, was like, this is a very, very deep game that has all kinds of depth, and you know, you can learn more about the strategy for years and years and years, and there's like levels and levels to the strategy. Maybe that person saying that would be doing something, would be lying, you know. But I think that I don't think most games have that. I think I don't know, maybe this plays into like a thing about game literacy, because most people don't even, this question that we're asking right now, like I don't think this even comes across most people's radar, really. I mean, maybe they do have the concept of like deep, you know, oh wow, this game is really deep. I don't know they have a clear example of what that, or a clear concept of that, but that will happen with all games. But it feels different if you intentionally design it to feel deeper. I think that like most of the games that we love, I think maybe you're right about that, but like most of the games that we love, they just like they are this, right? Like a lot of most games with randomness of any kind have some percentage of unwinnable games. Maybe it's lower than 10 or 20%, but I don't know. It's kind of like you could come at it from two angles. You could come at it from, I'm adding randomness to the game because that creates all these different possibilities, and you know, it creates an information horizon and all this kind of stuff. Or you could come at it from the angle of this angle, which is, I specifically want to create that feeling of it feeling deeper. I do think this effect is true. This enhances the stickiness, probably. You can... well, yeah, and so, like, I think that's maybe what the crouch mode is saying. Like, I guess there's a question here of, like, you know, you can have this with really hard difficulty, though. Yes, you can. And I think maybe we can also bring up, like, what Noma Birds has said before in the past about, like, in some sense, every game is a gambling game. Every match-based game is a gamble, because you don't know how you're going to perform. You don't know in a multiplayer game who you're being matched against. You don't know what happened to them today. Like, and there's so much that's unknowable. And so when you start a new matched game, in some sense, you are pulling a lever to, you know, like, oh, I hope I win, you know, or I hope I perform well, or whatever. Like, And so there is, I don't think, I would not call all match-based games gambling. I think we need to reserve that word. Go is not deterministic because humans are ugly dice. There is a sense in which that's true, yes. But I would say like Go is not a puzzle because of that. You know, like it is a game. It is like a strategy game, but it's it doesn't have randomness. You know, and it's like perfectly fair, as fair as a game between two humans could possibly be, pretty much, right? Like because humans are dice in use in that way, and I've always said that, and I believe that. It is maybe impossible to ever make a contest between two humans be completely fair, but Go comes pretty close. Yeah, so I don't know. I think that if we accept the concept of a match, you know, I think that like we are accepting that some amount of this like randomness, you know, and at the very least, I think that like at the very least, there's more conservative arguments given for this in the Discord, which are like, if you allow for that, it creates this like randomness space that you can, you know, design with, and so it's like a more fertile ground. So I think like at the very least that's sort of in defense of this, but I do think that there's nothing wrong with stagecraft, and there's nothing wrong with I mean I think that for some players, no, this is the way to say it. Like for some players, a game being not as deep as it seems is going to be like a deal breaker, and maybe the crouch mode is one of those players. But for a lot of players, they don't give a fuck. They really could not care less that it's less deep. They care that they're having fun, you know, and part of that having fun is maybe that illusion plus other illusions, you know, plus other things. I think that that's how a lot of players approach games, and I'm not saying that in any kind of critical way. That's how I approach games. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. But I think also it's an unsolved thing, and we should keep asking these questions. And especially about ethics, especially given like how many unethical, you know, because like, and there is a way that you could look at this and say like, oh, let's add this to the dark patterns list. You know, like this is a thing that you know, some evil mobile gacha game is gonna add to their game. You know, yeah. I guess a way to put it is that like you're mixing in a tiny bit of true gambling, right? Because this 10 to 20% is true gambling. Every time you start, there's like a 10% chance that this is going to be an unwinnable game. Then this whole system has become a little bit more of a gambling machine. And I think that in game design, gambling like that is a spice. I mean, there's certainly a bunch of gambling within Hearthstone Battlegrounds, or things that you could say are very gambling spice-like. And this is just another one of those, I think. And you have to be careful with it. But yeah, I don't know, a new way to think about matches and outcomes and wins and losses and that kind of stuff, perhaps. So yeah, I'm gonna go do dinner in a few minutes, but if there's any last questions, thoughts, comments, let me know, and we can talk about those real quick. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out and asking questions. This wouldn't have been all that much fun without people interacting with. So I appreciate it. I also think it's cool that like when you put an emoji in and then you italics it, It italics the emoji. Look at that. That's great. It's like the best thing I've seen in years. All right, y'all. Well, if you have any more thoughts, I did post this Google Doc on the Discord. Feel free to peep it there. Let me know what you think. Let's keep arguing about it and talking about it. I'll see you all next time. Be well. Peace.